Hey there, John Baptiste. This is Southpaw One here. So this isn't going to be a full video. I'm out of town with my wife and kids at the back home, so I'm going to be out of town for about 3 weeks. So I have a little bit more time to try to do an actual full video, which I'll try to do this weekend. Right now, I just wanted to kind of touch base with you. Um, so the reason why I don't believe in a God is just that there's no evidence of a God existing. You have a Bible, you have a Quran, you have a Torah, all pretty much the same book, anyways, but it's all a claim. For a claim to have ground to stand on, you need the evidence. Now, some of the things in the Bible and the Quran can be associated with truth and um, events that happened back in the day, but it has to be a little bit more than that. I mean, I can write a book with similarities to the Bible and put in facts that have happened, but it doesn't make it true. The biggest example of that is the flying spaghetti monster. It's basically that concept, as in taking an inanimate object, which is the flying spaghetti monster, and taking a book like the Bible and replacing all the words of the Bible with from God to flying spaghetti monster, and still hold the same truths. That's why I have that as a bumper sticker on the back of my car, because it's funny. But yeah, so the Bible is not evidence; it's a claim, and anything that can be claimed without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. I mean, that's something that I usually go by. Now, when it comes to science, it's a little bit different. I mean, we don't know everything, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to fill that space with, well, must be God. But at the same time, with science, if something is to be determined not true, then it'll be put in the science books and says, hey, this is no longer a thing. So when it comes to my beliefs of religion, if God himself was true and he stood in front of me and says, I am God and this is what you need to do, well, if he could prove himself to be God, I'd be like, cool, alright, hey God, what's up? Now if he said, you now must worship me, that'd be a different story. Because especially if he's the God of the Bible, I would not. I would not want to worship someone that's as sadistic as he is in the Bible. If you haven't noticed, a couple million people from his hand have died. I mean, shoot. You got Noah's Ark. All of them people died. How many times has he sent out many of kings, including King David, to kill people in the name of God? It's in the Bible. So to me, that's why I don't believe in that kind of stuff. I mean, there's nothing to it. You say like other religions have things that make no sense, but the Bible does too. Mainly because the three major religions fall from the same books, which originated from the Dead Sea Scrolls. The one I wanted to bring up to right now is in Revelations, chapter 7. It goes on basically saying that There's four angels. They all held back the four corners of the earth from our. I'll just read it. After this, I saw four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding back the winds of the earth to prevent any wind from blowing on the land or on the sea or on any trees. Then I saw another angel coming up from the east, having the seal of the living God. He called out in a loud voice to the angels who had been given the power to harm the land and sea. Do not harm the land or sea or the trees until you put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of God. So it says four corners. If you haven't noticed, the earth isn't a square. It's a sphere. Spheres don't have corners. Technically, you could go, oh, well, north, south, east, west. Still, that has no fact in there. And to think that some spiritual being that's an angel is going to hold back the winds, no. It also goes into the fact that only 144,000 people are going into the kingdom of heaven, basically. So that to me, it may be not be supposed to be taken literally, but that just is nonsense to me. Let's see. So when I was referring to something out of nothing, I was really referencing abiogenesis, not the whole Big Bang, because when it comes to the abiogenesis, they have created simple, repetitive chemical compounds that were able to be replicate themselves in a lab, and they were able to use the conditions that were most thought to be seen as what it was when life started. Now we don't have fossils of these molecules, just because that's just it. They're molecules. They're not life forms that take up space, that can be fossilized, that you can pull up and say, oh, look at that little bone structure of that, blah blah blah. And we can trace a lot of our evolutionary time frame back to the single cell organisms, and we can see minute changes in organisms in a short period of time. They had a study where they had bacteria put on a petri dish, and they'd put one species of bacteria, and that bacteria would grow, and then it would hit a line where they had another obstacle that would hinder the original organism. But then out of all that, it would stop, and then once one of the organisms mutated just enough to where it was able to thrive in that new condition, that new organism spanned out and went through the rest of the petri dish, and you could see when it hit each one what it was doing. And you can actually take a sample of these organisms in these different parts of the petri dish, and they would see different characteristics. That's evolution. These small little changes over time will change and make new organisms over time. I'm not talking like a couple of days, but a couple million years, you'll go from one type of organism to another. Now, when it comes to the Big Bang, scientists have been able to calculate the radioactive decay in the I know it's not the radioactive decay, the microwave background, and they were able to find all these measurements and figure out that our universe is expanding, and it's actually expanding faster than what we thought. And based off of this is how they were able to backtrack to the single point. Now, just because that single point was the start of the expansion does not mean that was the start of the universe. My personal thought on this is that the universe has always been around, and we've went through countless expansions and contractions. That's my personal thought on how the Big Bang started things off. So essentially, the universe as we know it is always expanding, contracting, expanding, contracting. I could be wrong. There could be other scenarios, but we know to a certain degree that as of right now, the universe is expanding, and we can test this through measurements, through telescopes, and all this kind of other stuff. But when it boils down to it, I mean, your book is a claim, and with this claim, there is no evidence. There may be a few stories in there that have ties to actual historical events, but just like any other book, it's written after the fact, and these things can be put in there. So honestly, that's how I see things. I don't see a reasoning for there to be some type of superior being saying, "Hey, I want to create this world, and here, boom." It doesn't make any sense. It serves no purpose. And putting in this, mythical person into this scenario does not add anything to the conversation. But the biggest thing with evolution is that it is a fact. There's countless facts that are put into this theory, which is the highest level of ideals that you can have in science. You can't, like, a law is just explaining how things work, a law is the explanation of how it works, whereas the theory explains how it got to that point, or how things work in series. But I'm getting off talking. But the biggest thing is with evolution, we can make predictions. We can say, we do this with this species. Essentially, this is what's going to happen. They're not going to be able to predict, if there's going to be a wide purple head snake or something. But we can make predictions with medications, how it's used, what's going to happen over time, how fast a medication is not going to work for a bacteria. There's just a lot of evidence. I'm not going to go into detail about this. I mean, you'd have to sit there and read mountains of medical books for that. And I mean, there's other types of different sciences that use evolution in it. But to me, a religion is just a story. That's really all it is. All kinds of cultures have had them, and a lot of them are very similar to each other because it's a story passed down from generation to generation. Kind of like the telephone game. One person says something to another person. By the time the 15th person says whatever the first person said, it's completely different. But it has the backbone of similarities. So that's it. But hopefully this weekend I'll try to get you a good video.